Hi, I am Kai Van Leuven, and I spent over 30 years in the Mormon church. And this is the story of what I did after leaving the church.
My name is Di Beals. I am a pastor at Venture Church and your friend as you tell your story.
All right. Well,
Looking forward to
good.
hear it.
Yeah. Episode one.
Let's
Oh,
hear it.
yeah. Really
Let's-
exciting. So, I just want to give some general background, some general context to who I am and how that relates to Mormonism and
Yeah.
how that relates to the religion that I grew up in. The faith of our fathers, I guess, for those of you in the Mormon church. And so I grew up in Western Washington, which is an area that has a few Mormons in it. Not a huge group, but a few. And my my time in the Mormon church was actually pretty good. I was in it. I appreciate all the leaders that I had in the church, people dedicating their time, putting in all the just I think giving to something they believe in and doing that. So I really do appreciate all of that. I know that this podcast will be seen as maybe what some would consider anti-Mormon, but I want to give it from my perspective of how I feel that things went while I was in the church, things that I found out, and then really where I went from there. Um, so I grew up in a very strong believing household. Uh, for all you Mormons out there, I was born of goodly parents.
Oh, wow. I've never heard that expression.
Well, that is at the very beginning of the Book of Mormon. It
Wow.
is, he says, I, Nephi, being born of goodly parents. And so I would think that I fall into that category. I was born in the covenant. Oh, man, we're going to get really down in the jargon.
Yeah, I'm
here.
gonna refrain from questioning you for
yeah.
now.
Yeah, there you go. My parents are very hardcore in the church, probably between 0 and 18 years old. I remember not going to church maybe a handful of times. Maybe I'd count on both hands. I mean,
Wow.
we went consistently. My parents were really good examples of going to church and being really dedicated to it. Baptized at 8. Come on. Everybody knows these. Priesthood at 12. Let's see here. Went on a mission at age 19. I actually baptized my wife at 17 years old.
Oh.
Yeah, so I was, as a priest, I baptized her into the church, and she waited for me. I was married in the temple at 21. And so I guess for all of you who grew up in the church, those are all of the check marks, right? Pretty on point with those age-wise. So that's kind of my personal background. My history in the church is that my 4-time great grandmother was sealed to and married to Joseph Smith.
Okay.
And then after Joseph Smith died, she remarried Brigham Young.
This is a hefty legacy.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it is, but a lot of Mormons are related, right?
Okay.
To a lot of people. But I would say that, yeah, I mean, I'm not, I guess the point I'm trying to make is I'm not fair weather. I'm not somebody who joined 3 years ago and then,
Sure.
said, oh, it's not for me. And now I have a difference of opinion.
This is multi-generational.
This
your
is
family.
multi-generational. Yeah. And that is on my dad's side. On my mom's side, they also came across as Mormon pioneers and went to Salt Lake.
Okay.
So both sides of my family, have that pioneer heritage, if you
Okay.
will.
And-
So
and you have how many siblings?
I want to make a joke here. 14. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I have 4. I have 4 siblings.
I mean, I know the answer to this question, but to help our listeners.
Yes, to help our listeners. Sorry. Maybe I'm being a little too light on our first episode, but I have 4 siblings. I'm the youngest. I'm the baby in there. So my roots in the church run very deep. And I think that as I've gone through this journey, it's been really hard because they do run so deep, I guess. And what led me away from the church is not kind of the common trope, which is that maybe I was offended or that I'm lazy, or I have to laugh at the lazy one.
Yeah, that's not you at all.
Anyways, or that I wanted to sin, that I wanted to do all these terrible things. I think those are things that people who are still in the church, sometimes they can't wrap their mind around why someone would leave. And so they have to come up with something. That's
Mm.
maybe the way our brains work, is that we have to come up with something. Um, mine is different than all of those, and it's really based on a fundamental disagreement with the church and its history and its claims. Um, and so we'll get into that. My profession is that I buy property and renovate it. I buy small businesses, we'll say, and real estate based businesses, and then turn them around and run them. It's really a pretty fun job. I work with amazing people that are great. Um, and so I had a project where I lived on site. So I bought a storage facility, which was kind of fun, my first one and exciting. Um, and I decided to live on site. It's about an hour and a half away from my house. So I was reading in the Gospel Library.
Okay.
Okay, so the Gospel Library is an app on your phone,
Okay.
and what it is it has all of the Mormon Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, all of their like texts that are written. So you
Okay.
would have like the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, the Bible. So it'd have all of these works that they have, and then it would have quotes and other like texts from the church that would be in there. So I was reading through there, and I came across a quote that I just in my gut, I said, man, I just fundamentally disagree with this quote. And I started to kind of, I don't know, it just started to kind of bother me a little bit,
Okay.
this quote. And so my oldest son is about to turn 8 years old, and we're getting ready to baptize him. And I guess I said, I want to explore this one quote, this one tiny quote. And so I started to look for an explanation to that quote. And then once that one didn't really make sense to me, I started to look for another explanation and another explanation. And I kind of went down this rabbit hole of Mormon apologetics. I was really staying with the church. I was staying on the Gospel Library app. Um, and I think I had kind of started to stray a little bit when I went on these apologetic websites. They're a little gray, a little
Okay.
murky.
Okay.
Um, but man, when you just feel that something is not honest
Mm.
and you feel like, man, this response is not honest from the apologetic websites, it to me, it just felt very disingenuous. It just felt like somebody was lying to me. And I think that's when I started to just say, oh, I don't feel that this is right. I don't feel like this is the right thing I'm being told. And at the time, I kind of said, I don't mind this being wrong for me personally, but I really don't want this to be wrong for my kids.
Mm.
I don't want to like continue to have this be
Yeah.
wrong. Um, and I don't know. I think that's a pretty hard. I think when most people are parents, they start to realize that like I don't. It's bigger than me at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah. That's a big wake up call part of your life for a
Yeah.
lot of people.
Yeah, and so I'm about to baptize my son into this, and I feel kind of this weird tension. And so what happened was I kept trying to stay with the faithful side of things, with the things that are pro Mormon, pro LDS Church, and it it just became like, okay, I think the church is lying to me, and I stumbled across the CES letter, which I'll be honest, I'd never heard of it before. I had never
What is it?
So the CES letter is someone who, Jeremy Reynolds, I want to say, who found all of these things in church history that are very inconsistent.
Oh,
Found things about Joseph Smith, about the life that he lived, about polygamy, about all of these things that I think cause a lot of doubt and can cause a lot of concern for members of the church, for like true believing members,
hmm.
like I was, right? And so I and it's long. It's like long. It's like 100.
Oh,
It's
That's
like
long.
100 plus pages.
Okay.
And it was one of those things where once I started to read it, I kind of couldn't stop reading it. And I read it all in one day. I
Wow.
just stayed up all night, 24 hours, read the whole thing. Um, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
How did you feel after you read that?
I felt pretty crummy, just in the sense that, I mean, your whole foundation of what you set your life on is kind of,
It's in question, at least.
yeah,
Or were you past that point?
it was definitely in question, but I knew that I wasn't going to move forward in the religion without like really having some answers
Okay.
to, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I hadn't,
It's a crisis point.
yeah, it was like I just really didn't feel good about what was in there. And what's I guess what's kind of troubling about it is like I know my family history and I'm reading this and there's a story about my four-time great grandmother in here. Which I think is, you hear stories about your family and they're always faith promoting and your family's so great and your family's so awesome. Um, and this was really about the prophet Joseph Smith and my four-time great grandmother, Emily Dow Partridge. Um, so a lot of people in the church will know in early church history, her dad, Edward Partridge, was the first bishop of the church.
Okay.
So kind of over the financial affairs of the church is kind of what that role was, at least from what I understand. If you know something different about that, just say something in the comments. But Emily was 18 years old so I'm envisioning an 18-year-old when Joseph Smith originally talked to her about getting married. So
Okay.
Joseph Smith was already married to his first wife Emma, and I think a couple other women. I don't have the exact on that, but he propositioned her at 18 to be married.
Her or her father?
Her.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I forgot a really important part of the story. Her father's deceased.
Oh, okay.
So
So her father passes.
her father passes. I'm sorry, man, I missed a really big point. Her father passes, and then her and her sister
They're now
are,
parentless.
yes, orphan.
Okay.
Yeah. Children are taken in by Joseph Smith
Okay.
and his wife.
Okay.
Okay. And so they live inside the Smith home. At age 18, she's first propositioned by Joseph Smith. So, and she's just like, no. And then on her 19th birthday, I mean, think about this, 19, right? He's in his 30s. So
And
anyway,
he's been in a caretaker parenting kind of a role,
yeah,
or uncle at least, or
s-
something family.
some type of parental role.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on her 19th birthday, right? Um, she ends up, and you can read this in her journal. She like tries to run away from this situation because she kind of knew what was coming. It was the house that she was living in or staying in, um, had people that were there that were kind of asked to leave, and then she was asked to stay, and she said, oh, I just wanted to run away as fast as I could. So you imagine this 19-year-old person. There's definitely a power imbalance. Like, she is this young orphaned girl, he is the prophet of the church that they go to. There's definitely a power imbalance there, but she talks about at 19 being married to him that night. So it was just like shotgun wedding right there. Um, and then 4 days later, her sister, Eliza, then marries Joseph Smith. So
Younger sister?
older,
Older
22.
sister.
So yeah, but still, I mean, it's your sister.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of a little murky, if I'm putting it best. And so I think okay, that's a really weird story, right? But I think it gets weirder when Joseph Smith's wife doesn't know about this situation.
Oh,
So his wife, Emma, doesn't know that.
it's happening under her own roof and she's not aware?
She's not aware. She didn't give like full approval at that time for him to have polygamous relationships. But a few months later, she does give permission to Joseph to have a polygamous relationship. And so they have a sham wedding, a second wedding with Emma present, with his first wife present. And I don't know, the whole thing's icky to me. I'm just being honest,
Yes.
like it's just not the way that polygamy was kind of presented to me is like all of these consenting adults, not no power imbalance, are just saying, yes, I want to marry, like a normal courting thing, which let's be honest, is still weird,
Yeah.
right? It's just I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It just is. It's just, but in these circumstances where there is a spouse not knowing about it,
Hmm.
um, who's also not telling the church, like people were being told, like, your leader's a polygamist. And Joseph would tell the whole church, no, I'm not. And then they would go out and kind of defend him and
Mm.
be like, oh, no, he's such a great guy. And I just think all of it is just so like wrong and icky. Um, I think about this 19-year-old girl, and I remember being 19. I remember being a 19-year-old boy who felt a ton of pressure to go on a mission, who felt a ton of pressure to live within, the confines of the church, whatever they tell you to do. And so I really like sympathize with this, right? Like even recently I was talking to someone about, well, what if I'd made the choice at 19 not to go on a mission, and like how painful that would have been
Mm.
for me to do that and how it would have really disrupted my whole life. In reality, I could have just got a plane ticket and gone halfway around the world. What is this young lady gonna do? Is she
Hmm.
gonna steal a horse and go five miles down the road? I mean, it's just she's just so trapped in this situation. I think that that's really sad. Um,
And she's your four-time grandmother.
Four-time great grandmother, yeah. So to pick up back in the story, Joseph Smith dies, and then her and a lot of Joseph Smith's wives just become Brigham Young's wife. So which is interesting. And um, then they have, posterity, they have kids, and it kind of goes down the line. So, yeah, I don't know. I just, that story just doesn't sit right with me. And so
So you unearthed this.
I unearthed this, yeah, while going through everything. And this podcast really isn't about like me going over all of the things that happened in church history. I mean there are great resources if you want to do that. I think that LDS discussions on the Mormon Stories podcast, I think they do a great job. Um a little warning, they are not it's not a believing faith promoting,
Sure.
channel, but I do think that they give good information
Okay.
there. So if people are really looking to get kind of a whole story, I think that's actually a really good resource. Okay, so I have all of this information in my brain, not really confirmed, but just kind of going around in my brain. So I want to give a timeline. The week before this Sunday, I am a full believing member, garments on. I am serving in my calling. I probably wrote well, not a check, but I probably paid, through the app, my tithing, did all these things, right? A full believing member to this next Sunday. I really didn't want to go in for sacrament meeting. So sacrament meeting is like um, where they do the bread and water communion, and then they have a couple talks and then a prayer to end it, a couple songs in there. So I didn't really want to go in there. So I'm waiting out in the halls, and I wait for the bishop to come out. And I kind of pulled him off to the side and I said, "Hey Bishop, I need you to release me from my calling," which at the time I was teaching the high school kids, Sunday school. I need you to release me from my calling, and then I need you to put me on the do not contact list.
Wow.
So I don't want to be contacted by anyone inside the church.
Did he flinch even?
I think the look on his face was like, "Whoa, we got a lot to talk about." And I wouldn't disrespect him. He's a good guy. I really think that he's acting on his conviction.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not paid. They spend a ton of time at the church.
And you had a good relationship
And
with him prior.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a nice guy. This is no like disrespect to him. He just he was like, "Wow, this is a shock to me." So he pulled me into his office. They have a little office there. Um, and I'll be honest, I was extremely frustrated and angry and upset. All of these things just kind of hit me all at once, and I just felt like super betrayed by the church.
Mm.
Um, Unfortunately, he was the person that had to take that
Yeah.
by being directly across from me. Um, and I I was just so upset. I felt so like just so lied to and so deceived that it was really upsetting. So I'm sitting there with him, and I wrote down, this was about maybe it. I wrote down kind of some of my thoughts in the moment. Actually, I started to journal about 6 months after I'd left the church. I started to really write down my thoughts. And so I told him that I viewed Joseph Smith's extramarital affairs as being like so dishonest and just like so just just so gross. And I said, this is a direct quote. I said, if anyone in our church said that they wanted to marry my wife, and in the meantime they sent me on a mission, I would think that they were a dirtbag. So this is a direct quote.
Hmm.
Um, and that is really how I feel. I mean, I still feel that way. That hasn't changed. We talked about the CES letter and that he had read it. Parts of it had made him upset, but he was making the choice to believe, um, which I think in some ways is commendable. In some ways, I think it doesn't allow you to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I go back and forth on that one. So this is an interesting one. I said, I want the truth, even if there isn't truth. Even if God doesn't exist, I want to know that. Right. So I
Yeah.
think that's an interesting point. And so this is his rebuttal back to me. Where else are you going to go?
Mm.
There's nothing else out there. And then I asked him, well, what else have you tried? Which,
Touche.
didn't really give a response. There's a lot of people who grew up in the church and that's what they know. And I felt like so angry and so upset when I was in there. And this idea that there's nowhere else to go, I think that's the way he felt. That's the way I felt as I walked out of that room,
Mm.
is that I have no idea where I'm going to go. I have no idea what a relationship with God looks like outside of the Mormon church.
Mm.
I have no idea. And I think that's where a lot of people are. At least I just had a missionary companion reach out to me this last week and
Oh,
talk
wow.
to me. He left the church like the week after he got home from his mission. Like
Oh,
he's like,
wow.
I don't ever want to be a part of it. And me and him like served a mission together. I talked to him for 4 hours on Sunday. Yeah, we had a good discussion. But the thing is a lot of people feel like there's just nothing else out
Yeah.
there. There's nowhere else where you can experience God, where you can have, relationship with Jesus, where you can have community, where you can have all these things. And that was kind of, I don't even think that was a fear tactic. Like, I don't think he was trying to scare me into staying. I think he was literally saying, there is nowhere else to go.
Mm.
And so you should probably stay here. And so, I mean, that's really my story, and I hope that people hear this and hopefully they hear it and there are parts to it that kind of make sense to them, where
Mhm.
they've experienced something. And I really want this to be a tool for anyone who's listening, to know that there is something outside of the Mormon church.
Yeah.
I hate to kind of the name of this is Jesus for
Well,
Mormons.
we haven't said the name yet, but that's a great segue.
Okay, that is a good segue. So, this is, and that's what this is about how can we reach those people who have left the church and still want a relationship with
Mm.
Jesus and want a relationship with God. And so, yeah, 1 week we went from
Yeah.
full believing to full I'm never coming back here. Yeah.
And that's just the snapshot that we'll then unpack over the weeks to come as you just sort of highlight different aspects of what that journey looked like and how painful it was, but that there is hope. So since
Yeah.
I know where you're going, I'm excited to hear how that is unpacked.
Yeah, definitely. And there definitely is hope. I know that I know so many people who have left, and I know, like, I've talked to them, I've cried with them, I've prayed for them if they allow me, if they want me to pray for them. Like, there are so many people out there that just have left and just are bitter and sad and upset, and they're like I was when I'm going over this stuff. And there is hope. There is something outside of the church, outside of the Mormon church. There's something that's beautiful. And yeah, so I'm excited to tell the story.
And I can't wait to hear it. I'm here for the journey.
All right. Well, sounds good. Well, we will see you guys on the next episode. And yeah,
Until then.
until then.